Welcome to the Scared So What podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Grant Van Ulbrich. This is the show where we break through the fear of change and ask the question, scared? So what? Each week we dive into personal change management, coaching, and leadership for the future, giving you real-world tools, insights, and stories to help you lead yourself and others through transformation. Whether you're navigating change in your life, your career, or your organization, this is your space to learn, to grow, and to take bold action. So, are you ready? Let's move from fear to forward. Welcome to the Scared So What podcast show. Today, I'm excited to have a very special guest with us who is the co-founder and talent director at Innate Talent. They specialize in building and scaling go-to-market senior and C-suite teams across sales, marketing, within the SaaS factor. So, with over 15 years experience, she's working closely with investors, founders, and CEOs. And what she does is she works to design strategic hiring plans that ensure the right talent is identified, secured, and even onboarded effectively. And what that does is it sets the foundation for long-term growth and commercial success. It's time to meet our guest, Miss Sarah Rhodes. Hi, Sarah. How are you today?
Hello. Thank you very much for having me. I'm very well. How are you?
I'm doing just so fine. It's a nice day here in London. The sun is shining, wind's blowing a little bit, and it's not raining.
I know, typical Brits. We always moan about the weather.
Exactly. But I don't know how we made it into this week where it's actually good weather. And where are you at today?
We're based in Cambridge, so I'm in our lovely office looking outside on the lovely green, which is delightful.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very good. And for our listeners, you and I met at the CRO Connected Summit, right?
We did a couple of months ago, and you presented a wonderful display.
Well, thank you very much. We talked about change, which is something I'm guilty of. I talk about it every day because guess what? Change is constant. It's always happening to each and every one of us. But what we want to talk about with you today is your great work and what you do. So executive recruitment, tell me about that. And tell our audience, our listeners, a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah, so, oh golly, I mean, my career has been long so far. It feels like it's been long, but perhaps been short. But yeah, I've been working in recruitment for over 16 years now. So
16, hang on. So sorry, I got to stop. I'm looking at you as well for our listeners. You look like you're 25. So how many years? You're just beautiful.
I've just got great genes. What can I say?
You do. So a lot of history.
Yeah. So I think like many, I just fell into it. And I know it sounds so ironic because everyone says they fall into sales in some way, shape or form. But I guess I studied law at university and it gave me a really good kind of grounding. Like I'm really good at arguing my case for someone's standing in someone's ground, etc. And I thought actually, post graduation, what do I want to do? And I fell into the world of recruitment and selling and sales. And I've worked at 3 recruitment firms as an employee, climbing that proverbial ladder towards management, senior leadership, managing teams, etc. And the opportunity kind of arose a couple of years ago to join an ex-colleague and found an executive search firm that focuses, as you kind of have already mentioned, on scaling go-to-market, commercially focused teams. What started as solely a UK operation has quickly diversified into scaling those teams internationally into emerging markets. With a real key focus on leadership roles in solutions-led tech. So we're kind of currently operating across 4 continents on roles. Yeah, I know, it's crazy. I never sleep either.
I was going to say, how do you? Great that the conversation is about change, but you're living it. You're absolutely living it completely.
Yeah, but it's great. It offers diversity. You're dealing with so many different cultures, ways of working, and we love it. It offers so much opportunity.
Well, listen, how do I think about this? So executive placement and recruiter, especially C-suites, and it doesn't matter what field you're doing in, there's so many difference, but you're specializing in SaaS, go-to-market as well. There's got to be a lot of change that comes, I think back on, your parents when they used to tell you some of the biggest changes that'll happen in life is finding a new job, getting married and moving house. Well, what you're dealing with And a lot of times, those people are doing all three all at once. Maybe they're not getting married, but maybe they are, but they're definitely getting new jobs. Maybe they're relocating to new house as well. I mean, how do you help your clients that you're serving to deal with all of that change all at once?
It's a lot. But in modern day business, change really is all around us anyway, whether we choose to accept it and be aware of it or not. We're kind of managing economic transitions through to business culture shifts, to management, to leadership styles, working patterns. Think pre-COVID, there was no such thing really as work from home.
Yeah.
We're now in a situation where we're kind of contending with fully remote or hybrid working and linking that into work-life balance. So there's a lot that you're kind of working with and navigating around. I think personally it affects me as a search specialist. Obviously, change is always a good thing. And stagnation is what any good recruiter always will look to avoid at all costs, because it means there's no kind of forward thinking. How it impacts clients that we're dealing with, well, it really depends on the gravity of the change. So, and that's when it kind of gets exciting, right? And what might look like in comparison to the future versus where they are now, and where their specialism can kind of grow to, or where we can assist in navigating that positive change is quite exciting. But equally, some businesses aren't quite ready for that, and it's about educating them on terms of a timescale of what that might need to look like in order to keep up with those economic changes that we just spoke about, or the economic transitions, or the business shifts, or the cultural shifts of remote working versus hybrid working versus full time.
Yeah. And do you, I guess there's all different types, but do you primarily work with organizations where they call you up and say, hey, find me somebody for X? Or do you work with actual individual clients, say, help me find a role, or both?
Both. Yeah. So we kind of do what you would class as the full 360 in terms of we're supporting those individuals in finding those future opportunities. And then equally, we're supporting the businesses and the clients, or the hiring bodies, if you want to call them that, in supporting them to find the talent for that particular position that they're recruiting for. There is a fine line between the two, and it's about managing expectations on both sides. Before we even jumped on the call, you and I were talking about unicorns, and I broke your heart in discussing how they don't actually exist. So sorry to any of your listeners that think that they do. But it's navigating around those and educating, and the change that they're expecting doesn't always come in the form that they first thought. And working with them to navigate, well, what can that change look like if it's not how they've initially perceived it would be?
It's so true. It's so true. And I can only imagine the stress that you and your team might be under, because the client, if you're working with a client who is trusting you to find them, to place them somewhere, imagine the pressure, right? I'm leaving it all into your hands. Find me my dream job, etc. What is that like?
Fun. I think.
Okay, that was very well thought out.
I think it's about managing realistic expectations. There's always everyone is leading busy lives, and everyone wants something done now.
Yeah.
But you do have to, I think, in some respect, take a step back yourself to some degree as well, and really reflect on what that outcome looks like, and when it can happen, and then forecasting that onto the client or the candidate who's looking, and managing their expectations, because it doesn't happen instantaneously. It's not something that can be orchestrated overnight, and we do have to work with both sides of the parties to have realistic expectations. And if we can set them out early, then the expectation obviously will naturally be a lot calmer as they move forward. I think it's when there's silence and they're expecting something, an instantaneous change, if you like, where you haven't perhaps spoken about it a bit more clearly. That's when things can get a little bit chaotic and hairy, for the want of a better term. But certainly from our side, if we're managing it the right way, setting out the expectations and keeping people in the loop, I think the effective change can happen in the timescales that they're wanting, but it's just about being realistic.
And it's so true. If you're setting clear expectations with people, but even then in that kind of environment of, It just depends what the situation is. Sometimes people's financial circumstances are, I need a job today, and that probably I can imagine just drives your call volume through the roof. People calling you, hey, did you find anything? What did they say? What was the interview result, etc. So it's chaotic when it's hard enough to manage your own situations or personal change, let alone what you're doing is actually having to lead that and manage it for others as well too, on both sides of the spectrum.
Mhm. Yeah.
Potential clients, full-on businesses and organizations, but then also individual clients. But that leads me to ask you, you've obviously been doing this, and you're successful. You've grown beyond the UK to, go to all those different continents and throughout international. What's your leadership style?
How honest do you want me to be?
I would very honest. That would be great. There's no judgment here. It's me, you, and the microphone. So
my personal management style, being entirely transparent, is very direct. But I think that tends to help people who are open to change. It does marry up with my recruitment style, I think, quite well. So I consider myself who is someone who is very transparent, and I think you will come across a lot of the people who I've probably worked with as a candidate or as a client in the community that we kind of circulate in together too. But it is transparency, but most importantly, realistic. And there's something which is incredibly important on the subject of transformation and change within business. With all the will in the world, the board or the C-suite can say that they're open to change, but they can put in place the greatest of the future planning. However, if they don't have the resolve to action that change and the move that the business through the transformation, then you can't really stop. They should really stop at the first hurdle, to be honest. If they're not ready, they can't then future plan.
Well, you're absolutely singing my story.
So it's like I've heard your talk before.
I'm wondering. I'm curious. Exactly. You're being the great student of just giving me everything that I wanted. So
I think it kind of similarly applies to so many areas of business, right? It's not just sales, and it's not just the marketing side, which we primarily support on, and not just typically, in broadly speaking, hiring. It's the best leaders are those people that you respect for being honest. You know where you stand, and you know what the future looks like. Of course, it's going to adapt. You're going to have to navigate perhaps roadblocks that were unforeseen, but those that are offering up on a plate the transparency and the honesty, they're the leaders who will orchestrate the change.
Exactly. And we teach that and you and I talked about that. We talked about that at CRO that day, the importance of being a transactional leader or being a transformational leader. Which one are you as a foundation? 76% of our lives is lived in transactional leadership. And why? Because it's easy. You get up in the day, you get your coffee, you decide what you want to do, you go to work. If somebody comes in to bother you while you're typing a message or doing some work, etc., it's so simple for you to just tell them what to do, right? Or if you've got a call that you want to end really quickly, it's so easy for you to just tell people what to do because you're the boss, you're the leader, you're leading. That happens in sales, operations, marketing, everywhere. It's harder to actually go, well, wait a minute. What do you think you could do? And how could you do that? Right? And have that coaching open conversation, because when you do that, that's when ideation happens. And what you've just said, Sarah, is so important. We need people who are transformational leaders that are willing to be honest, authentic, vulnerable, right? Because we don't have all the answers. And the minute you pretend that you do, they see right through you.
Yeah. And it takes a village, right? Like you want people on board, you want people to kind of come on the journey with you. And I think that those are the leaders that you've just mentioned are the ones that can create the village very easily. The ones that are the transactional or the ones that burn them. Yeah.
Well, I'm curious, in your expertise, I'm sure you have, you've got years of, I don't want to say it, I don't want to put the words in your mouth, but almost like assessing people. Assessing their skill sets, right? You see through it all. So what happens if somebody tries to be that transactional leader to you and they're expecting you to place them in a role? What do you do?
I think it comes back to the type of impressing my leadership style onto them and being like that entirely transparent individual. Unfortunately, having to get quite direct, and naturally you are going to frustrate individuals as much at some point, right? Like I have been hung up on. I've been told that I don't know what I'm doing. That's just part of the role that I'm kind of navigating through and the career that I've chosen. But if I'm not sticking true to what I know that particular, for example, hiring manager is looking for, I'm not representing them either.
Yeah, it's true.
And so I'm then going against something that they've given me as a very strict kind of brief to try and please one person. But that person is naturally, I would be setting them up to fail if I was to put them in a situation like that anyway. And I think that's where you have to really stick to your morals and be that honest and transparent individual as much as possible. Because if you can't do that and you slip into that transactional individual all the time, nothing's going to happen and change is going to kind of grow in the wrong way. And it's not really perhaps as thoroughly thought out as it could have been.
Well, I love that you shared that as well, too, because I'm not sure that many candidates actually look at their recruiter, their executive recruiter or a placement person as a person that would live their values. And I love that because you're doing that, because you have to live the values of who you are and show up in those values each day. And you're so right. I could be a candidate trying to find a role in placement, but yet you have the assignment to a company or an organization, and you have to hold true to that organization about who you're placing. And I never thought about that. It's almost like matchmaking, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Is that fair? Is that fair to call you the job placement? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, whilst the role may sound very simple, there's actually a hell of a lot of process behind the scenes that goes into it from a qualification perspective, not just of a candidate, but of a client as well. And I think a lot of people think, oh, it's easy. It's just about a matter of matching up skills, but it isn't, because especially at the level that we're working at, we are interviewing everyone that sits on that senior leadership team, that C-suite board, to understand their makeup, their moves, how they navigate around their own teams. Because when you're placing someone either in a senior sales role or a senior marketing position, you're actually placing them in the center of a very large business opportunity, because they are the revenue generators a lot of the time. Exactly. So they have multiple touch points across the business that perhaps aren't necessarily kind of considered, finance, HR, technology, product, etc. And we have to ensure that the individual that we're putting there isn't just going to rock the boat in one division, because if they do, they're going to rock the boat in the whole company. And that's when that cultural change can shift very, very quickly.
Sorry, I'm just laughing. You should not rock the boat in one division. I absolutely love that. That's amazing.
But it's the facts, right? Like it's very calculated. And the fact of the matter is, there aren't always 15, 20, 30 candidates that can do that role, as much as, for example, a hiring manager would like to think so. You're very lucky in this market if you're getting up to 10 profiles per senior level role right now, just because of the level of expectation, the quality, but equally, and also, the type of person that sits within those particular organizations. We're working with scale-up businesses of like pre-seed to Series C, essentially, and those businesses are at their pinnacle of their growth, and they need people who can orchestrate very, change of some description very quickly, as they're trying to find their feet at the same time. So it's about making sure you're bringing in people that can keep up with that change, but equally not run too quickly that the business gets lost behind.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you know what? At the end of the day, the people that you place or that you are potentially going to place, they have to be a representation of you, right? Because that's your marker. That's your advertising, the right job that I put you in / the job that you do reflects completely on your organization. So have you ever had to tell somebody, no, you're not the right fit for that job?
Daily.
Oh, really? I just thought it would be like a one-off. Daily. I didn't expect that. Amazing.
The market is incredibly exciting at the moment, and I don't mean that. There are a number of candidates who are in a very unfortunate situation where they're out of work, they've been made redundant. There was a high volume of redundancies over sort of 2024 going into 2025. But there's often sparks an air of desperation, and you spoke about it earlier, like you don't know what someone's personal circumstances. They might need a job tomorrow, but they might be okay for 6 months. But there are factors in the market at the moment that make it very easy for people to apply, but equally that desperation can sometimes come across in the wrong format, in that they are applying to everything, but they almost convince themselves that they're relevant to any role. And so trying to kind of discuss the reasons as to why someone isn't quite right for that particular position, we have to be really careful about how we're navigating around that, not to kind of bruise their feelings too much, because equally I can completely empathize, but you do be, again, going back to the kind of leader and the values that you stick by, you've got to be transparent and you've got to be direct.
Well, and you're the voice of the customer, because you have the brief, right? And they don't have the benefit of knowing that, but yet you don't want to make a mistake, being that, if you're being a matchmaker, you wouldn't want to do that if it's not going to be a good fit. Wow.
And you don't want it ending in divorce, right?
Oh, well, exactly. And that happens with people and in employers a lot more than we think. Well, let me ask you this. What do you believe to be the importance of leading change for your clients?
So we'll hark back to the comment I made earlier of stagnation kills businesses. And so businesses should always be thinking about, if they're not being proactive in change, what changes are happening within their business that aren't within their immediate control. So given that many of the businesses that we assist scale very rapidly, and I think I mentioned about it earlier, the dynamics of those organizations can change at equally rapid rates. So especially when leadership teams change from that initial executive team, or if you want to call them SLTs, as the founder and close partners or acquaintances, like there's a dynamic shift. So on many occasions, that initial team isn't the team that's going to take that business the furthest.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So organizations bring in people who have already scaled organizations, or industry leaders who are part of more of a corporate outfit. Inevitably, change management and business culture is always at the forefront of those thoughts, or at the very least they should be. So when I'm looking at it, so from a personal perspective, I consider that every day is a learning opportunity, and that's how businesses should be looking at it too, in terms of there's technology being developed all the time, which is incredibly interesting. And I think that if you're not learning, you can become too comfortable. And that's one of the that's one of the reasons why you should always try and hire people who are, I guess, in some ways better than yourself in certain areas. By bringing those people in, you're always going to be learning on the areas of businesses where they excel, and they're assisting you in that journey. So I think from a kind of business perspective, in terms of the importance of leading change for the clients, it's huge, and we have to be there. I mean, I'm a big advocate of change, as you well know. And from my personal perspective, I've got a business mentor, and I have an extremely strong peer group who I lean on regularly. And that group that I work within, they've worked from 20 people through in startups through to the world's biggest multinational corporates. However, having that avenue of open forum with these people and the ability to learn is always invaluable. So we need to look at when we're working with these businesses and the clients, we need to be thinking about how open are you to that change, and can we lean on multiple external supports rather than just one? And getting multiple viewpoints essentially that could facilitate positive change for them.
Exactly. Truly transformational. That's the leadership I'm hearing and sensing with you, which is probably why we connected so well from that conversation when we first met at CRO. I remember you coming up afterwards, and I loved how you immediately stepped forward and you actually lived your truth. It was very direct. I like this, I like that, and then we just connected. but it wasn't such a direct approach that it was offensive. It was so inviting, and I can sense that from you, which is great. So, wow, look at the time already. Well, we're down to our last question. What we ask every single guest on our show: what is one thing of advice you'd like to give out to people about change, about coaching, about leadership, or just life? Life with Sarah.
Oh, that's too deep.
We might be here for a while.
So internally, we call it something called the RRA. And to be clear, this isn't the IRA. It's very different.
RRA. Okay.
Yeah. So the first R is responsibility. So understanding what your responsibility is within the organization. The second R stands for realism. So is what people are proposing realistic? Does it sit within our responsibility? And then the A is action. So without the first two, you can't have the third.
I like that.
If the first two check out, and it's a tick box for both of them, and it does sit within your responsibility and it is realistic, then you should take action on it. So from a leadership perspective, and as the old saying goes, actions speak louder than words.
Of course.
It's something which all business leaders should remember in all walks of their business and personal development, in my eyes. RRA.
Wow. There you go. The more you know with RRA. I think we can actually take that away. That's a great learning spot for us to share with everybody. Well, thank you so much. Wow. Into the world of recruiting, there's so much to learn, so many things that I didn't know. And I hope you'll come back on the show and we can continue the discussion a little more. Would you like to do that?
I would be delighted to.
Wonderful. Well, thanks, Sarah. We'll work together and make that happen. And for all of you listening, if you'd like to learn more about Sarah, to connect with her, follow along on LinkedIn with her LinkedIn here and her bio. I'll put the post for you to be able to see and connect out with her. Sarah, thanks again for being on the show today. Any last words?
Just remember, guys, change is possible. You've just got to keep going.
There you go. Very wise words. Exactly. Don't succumb to it. Don't fall a victim to it. Think about it. And we actually have a great model called Scared, So What? And if you'd like to get the first generation app, it's free. So go ahead and use that. And remember, RRA. Thanks so much, Sarah. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us here on the Scared So What podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Grant Van Ulbrich. If you found any of this information insightful, well, give us a like and follow along. Make sure that you tune in each week for more episodes as we talk further about what is personal change, how do you manage it with Scared So what about coaching, and also leadership, and how all three of these tie together. If you'd like to learn more, then go to our website at www.scaredsowhat.com. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope that you come back soon.